Good evening. I'm Sarah Mayrovitz, and I'm a student member of the Oregon think tank on...
You got it, okay.
On behalf of the University of Oregon Housing, I would like to welcome you this evening to the community conversations event titled Why Do We Laugh? The psychology and culture of humor. The Community Conversations series is a living and learning initiative of the University of Oregon, of the University of Housing, co-produced by the students of the Oregon think tank on the Oregon Brain Trust, to undergraduate academic groups in the residence halls. I also wish to acknowledge our co-sponsors, the Robert D. Clark Honors College, the Oregon Humanities Center, Undergraduate Studies, and the UO Libraries, who have collaborated with the University Housing for the past 8 years to make this series possible. Our event will conclude at 8:30, and I ask that you hold your questions until the last speaker has concluded their opening remarks. We will reserve ample time for questions and answers and discussion. At this time, it is my honor to introduce our panel. Michael Jenkins is a professional comedian who will open the event by performing a 10 to 15 minutes of his interactive act on stage, and then join the panel as a speaker. Michael is the only electric ukulele playing comedian in the known world, and has performed in headlines for comedy clubs and events all over America, including the Oregon State Fair and Expo, Harvey's Comedy Club, Chinook Winds Casino, and Spirit Mountain Casino. Michael has also recently toured with Jimmy J.J. Walker from the 70s show Good Times and Gong Show's legendary Unknown Comic. Mike's credits include appearances on the Comedy Channel, America's Funniest People. Heidi Knoll is instructor of leadership and communication with the Lundquist Business College. Heidi will be discussing the topics of leadership, humor this evening. Knoll's PhD is from the College of Business and Economics at Washington State University. She was previously the faculty team leader for the University of Idaho's Executive MBA program and has held teaching positions in the United States Army War College, Washington State University, and the University of Montana. In addition to teaching leadership and communication classes, Knoll will be co-developing a professional writing program for undergraduates. And our last speaker, Whitney Fellows, is a third-year PhD student with structured emphasis in folklore and writing instruction in the English department. She studies online culture, specifically transgressive humor within trolling and gaming subcultures. Recent projects include an explication of post-irony, a comedic aesthetic inherent to, and as she argues, necessitated by online discourses, as well as a discussion of the Obama Joker socialism macro, and several ethnographic accounts of trolling behaviors on Facebook memorial pages. So at this point, I will hand it over to Michael Jenkins.
All right, so it is on. Hello, hello, hello. I can't hear myself. Crank it. Crank it.
It's working.
Is it? Can you guys hear something? Oh, okay. Where are the speakers? We have no idea. Well, hello, my name is Mike. I don't really need this, do I? Yeah, but they're cool, so I'm just gonna. Hey, what's that? Hello, my name is Mike. I'm from Portland, and give yourselves a big round of applause. There we go. Now we figured it out. Give yourselves a round of applause for getting an education. Stay in school, don't do drugs. Thank you. Well, you're a tough room. So, let's see. I thought what I would do is some comedy that will make you very uncomfortable. How's that? Do you have bombs to be okay? It's just you, man. Everybody else is going, no. Since you get for sitting right in the front, you can't see what's happening behind you. What's your name?
Neil.
Neil, nice to meet you, Neil.
Nice to meet you.
Neil, what year are you?
I'm a freshman.
Freshman, yeah. Feeling good about it?
What?
Are you feeling good about it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Think you're going to make it beyond freshman?
We'll see.
I know, we'll see, Neil. Well, we'll see. He hasn't buttoned his coat. He's feeling a little nervous. All right, starting to sweat a little bit. Yeah. Where are you from originally? Pullman, Corvallis area. Were you a hermit? Like the gypsy family? Travel around a lot? Did you? Where'd you go to high school?
Pullman High School.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, you did.
How would you know? I'm like 40 years older than you. You wouldn't know. You know everyone that ever graduated from Pullman High School.
Yep.
Neil, how did you know this?
Well, when you graduate, you get your picture up on the wall. But it's a small high school.
Well, unless only 12 people a year graduate from the high school, you would run out of wall space. Okay. Yeah. What I would do is check behind one of the pictures. All right. Yeah, now. Yeah. Okay. It's getting a little warmer. Who are these guys? Crazy guys.
My friends, Pullman High School people.
Oh, really? So you guys, you went to high school together and now you're doing college together? Or are they still in high school and they're just your posse?
Yeah, college.
College, yeah? And so what's your major?
Environmental science.
And what's your major? Cooking. Architecture. All right. So what is environmental science exactly? Do you know yet?
Sort of. Going out. We're taking an environmental science class right now, and we're basically talking about a lot of the problems with the environment, like global warming and all that kind of stuff.
That kind of stuff, yeah. So when you get done, what are you going to be able to do?
I don't know. Hopefully, what I would like to do is work out in nature, in ecology, and that kind of thing.
Just like we used to do back at Pullman High School. Right on. Good times, good times. That was great. Yeah. So I'm going to let you off the hook here for just a moment. And I'm going to bring your buddy up on stage to help me out. Do some stuff. You up for that? What's your name?
Chuck.
Chuck. All right, Chuck. Yeah, instead of with an accent, Chuck. Chuck. Now, those official Pullman High School hats? And because I'm checking, you guys, that's you. It's well, she's sport one a little bit, but you know, she's a girl. She's supposed to be wearing a girl hat. What? No, it's cool. It's like, you know. Yeah. Did you call each other before you? Yeah, what are you doing? Going to the thing, yeah? You wearing a hat? Yep, I'm wearing a hat. Good for you guys. Anyway. All right, 7 more minutes. To kill. See, comedy's easy. Look at your watch a lot. So I'm from Portland. Anybody from Portland? Oh, geez, everybody. Some Portland folks. Yeah, anybody from West Side? Portland, West Side. Do it. No, it's too many fingers. Yeah, I can't do it either. Where'd you go to high school?
Oh, me?
Sure.
Yeah, I went to Grant High School.
Grant. That's not West Side, but...
Yeah, East Side, Northeast Side.
Yeah, I used to live down the street from Grant High School. Yeah. Threw rocks at kids walking by my house. Get off my yard. Remember me?
You know, now you look kind of remember.
Yeah. So anybody went to like a Beaverton school? Yeah, where'd you go?
Sunset High School?
Sunset.
Yeah.
I live right down the street from there.
Yeah.
I do.
Okay.
Right behind that Sunset. No, actually I do, right? You know where that the gas station is by Safeway?
Yeah.
Yeah. See. Don't mess with me. I know my towns. I know where gas stations are and liquor stores. Some important things you guys need to know now that you're in a big city. There's no liquor stores in your town, is there? Oh, okay. Well, they perked up. Yeah, let's talk about the liquor stores. We got them all over. You saying yes, like there's a whole bunch of them?
There's at least 2. We're a pretty small town.
Yeah, I know. There's only, 12 kids in the high school. Oh, their pictures are up there. So why do you have so many liquor stores for like such a small town? Are they battling liquor stores? Do they compete with each other? Oh, loggers.
It's a logging town.
I know. I used to live there, remember? That's back in my logging days. Which explains the hats now. Logging hats. And that's why you want to be in the environmental thing, because that whole logging thing background that you used to have. So, here it is, almost the end of 2010. Everybody have a good year so far? Clap your hands if you had a good year so far. Yeah. It's up to you guys. You guys are the new generation. You're the scientists. You're the doers. So, my generation, we blew it. By this time, they were supposed to be flying cars. Not happening, so I don't know. It's up to you guys. By 5 years. Look at me, I'm talking to you. Flying car. What's your name? Stella. It's all on you, Stella. It's your personal responsibility. You're going to be here. Well, I don't know where you're going to be 5 years from now, but if you're still here 4 years from now and there's no even talk about flying cars, I'm coming back. Stella. So are you a science student? Science? Do you study science? Yeah. So you're already planning the whole flying car thing? No. We don't need them. Well, I'm not liking you a whole lot. Okay, do we need flying cars? Okay. Show of hands, who wants the flying cars? Okay, who thinks we do not need the flying cars? Wow. All right, you're off the hook. The flying trains. No flying things at all? So the reason I was going to ask you about, because this year been pretty good for me. Last year sucked, I'll be honest. Last year I had that operation, major surgery, had my tonsils out. Very painful as an adult. Anybody else have their tonsils out as an adult? Anybody have their tonsils out at all? A few of you? Yeah, back there had his tonsils out? Yeah? How old are you had your tonsils out? Well, that's pretty close to being an adult. Now you guys are just patronizing. So I tell you what, I'm going to sing you guys a song. You ready? Oh, so who likes sports? Let's get some clapping going. Who likes sports? Who likes country western music?
Yeah!
All right, who likes tabloid drama? Okay, I've combined all of those into a song. I'm going to do a song for you right now. It includes all of those things. This is the story of young Kobe Bryant, basketball player who had a good life. Up in the mountains near Vail, Colorado, Kobe decided to cheat on his wife. Later, the young maiden went to the law, claiming she screamed, Kobe, no. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Kobe was busted, his fans were disgusted. To Colorado, now Kobe must go. To that place where that foul deed was done back near Vail, Colorado. Kobe admits that his judgment was poor. His lawyer tells him it's gonna cost plenty. He'd have been better off buying a whore. Back in L.A., Kobe cried to the press, I'm sorry, I done a wrong thing. Oh, woo, woo, woo. His lawyer would save him, his wife, she forgave him, especially after he bought her that ring with huge diamonds because of what happened near Vail, Colorado. The Lord admits that it's no legal nor booze. Excuse me, I forgot the words. Guilty or innocent, we'll never know, but one thing is certain, young Kobe is screwed. All right, Chuck, you ready to help me out? Come on up here, Chuck. Everybody give Chuck a big round of applause. Right over here. I'm going to move you right over here, Chuck. All right. So I think you're kind of an animated guy, good sense of humor. He's like the class joker. Was he like the...
Yeah, he's pretty funny.
He's a pretty funny guy? Yeah, I think so. He's got that kind of comedy timing about you. All right, Chuck. Check him out, Chuck. Chuck, give him a... No, do the noise. All right, cool, Chuck. Just relax. Look straight ahead. Take a deep breath, Chuck. Let it out. Deep breath, Chuck. Let it out. All right, Chuck, I need you to close your eyes, Chuck. Shh, Chuck. Putting into a trance now, Chuck. Deeper, deeper into a trance. Chuck, you're in a trance. Seriously, Chuck. All right, stay right there. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do some channeling tonight. I don't know if you believe in ESP or ESPN. But we're going to channel an ancient psychic by the name of Bombalumba. And this works, Bombalumba will speak through Chuck. Now, Chuck does not speak or understand a word of English. And from this point on, Bombalumba does not speak or understand a word of English. So what I need is some help from the audience. 1, 2, maybe 3 questions. Something you'd like to know about the future. I will take that question, translate it from English into Bombalumba's language for Bombalumba, who will answer the question, speaking fluently through Chuck, using his native tongue that sounds something like this. And Chuck will answer fluently in that language. Then I'll translate it back into English and tell you what Bombalumba has said. I need a couple of questions, otherwise it's going to be me and Chuck up here looking stupid. So if you've got a question, I don't care what it's about. Well, probably not politics, maybe not sports, but some personal thing, something about, your own future or the future of your group or table. Okay, right there. Hang on a second. Just raise your hand just like that. Let's bring Chuck out of the trance right now. He's opening his eyes. All right. Let's find out if Bombalumba is here. Bombalumba!
Incanishum Parampria.
All right, Bombalumba is here. Okay, we had a question over here. Yes.
Am I going to get a job after college?
Are you going to get a job after college? Very good question. Bombalumba. You want fries?
In Ganesh und Parampria. Un praprandum bam chicken.
He said, yeah. So let's get one more question. One more question for Bob Maluma. Maybe something that interests Bob a little bit more. Somebody phone. Yes, you're looking. Yes, you have a question. I can tell. Yes, yeah. That wasn't the question.
How will I die?
These are the best comedy questions I've A little dark over here. What's so much going to make about like a bunch of my kind of action? What's good?
Umperumaran ke rumah baden unperama berana.
He says he's not exactly sure, but apparently it's going to be her job to kill you. Let's give Chuck a big round of applause for helping me out, you guys. And my time is up. Thank you very much.
Can you hear me okay? Hi, everybody. I'm really excited to be here tonight. I'm Heidi Knoll, and I'm from the College of Business here at University of Oregon. I just got here in May, so I'm brand new. And so I'm still kind of learning my way over here. I had to have a student escort me over to the Living Learning Center tonight, and I wasn't sure I could make it here on my own in the dark with Kevin's instructions. So I had to have an escort. I'm here to talk a little bit about leadership humor, and I wanted to give you just a little bit of background about my own area of interest in this topic, and then I want to show you a clip just to give you an example. I told our associate dean that I was speaking on the panel tonight, and I was following the stand-up comedian, and she said, "That sounds like a setup for disaster." And I said, "Yeah, I think it's a kind of a hard sell." I want to just say one word about my own background. I made a career out of oxymorons. I started out right out of high school in the military. I served 7 years in the U.S. Army, and I worked in military intelligence. And then after military intelligence, I got out of the Army and went back to school. And for years, I taught business ethics, And now I'm doing leadership humor as my research. So it's been a whole career. I've got maybe jumbo shrimp and something to do with freeze or burn, and I'll have them all kind of covered by the time I'm done. So my own background interest is in leadership humor, but I wanted to just say a little bit of maybe some basic things about humor before we start. My original thought was there was a psychologist here, and they would give you this background. And so, in terms of leadership, we're really trying to connect with people on a very personal level or a very values-driven or beliefs-driven level. And humor is one of the most universal things, or laughter particularly, that we can use to make those kinds of connections. It's one of the first social skills we learn about 4 months of age, and it's one of the tests that we look for in an infant to see that they're developing and progressing as they should be. I think that probably one of the most interesting things about it is that while we're not the only species that engages in laughter, it is a cross-cultural phenomenon in that it is a distinct sound that can be recognized across cultures. So while we might find different things humorous across cultures, there's nothing unique about the way we express that humor in terms of laughter, and there's a universality to that. And then if you think about the kinds of things that make a joke funny, it's really something about the storytelling art, something about the unexplained or unexpected, but that immediately becomes predictable and sensical at the moment of the punchline, right? And so it has to have this connection to what we've already seen or what we already know or our past learning. And it has a relationship aspect, both in how we think about the kinds of jokes we tell in different contexts and in the way that we make a joke funny, right? Or even an event humorous, if you want to think about it that way. And we were talking about this a little bit in my colleague and I today before I came over. And he said this business about the forbidden, which is part of the quote at the bottom there, is really an important part of it for him too. I'm just going to give you an example. I recently had a situation in class here teaching in the business college where I was reading an email to my students, and I was saying, let's capture what's going on for this writer in this email. And we have in our class an international student who doesn't speak out in class very often, but is incredibly intelligent and thoughtful and very engaged in the class. And as I read the email, the person in the email is very upset about something, and I read it in the tone that she would use if she were sending this email. And after I finished the email, it was just dead silent in the room. And I said, "What do you know about this person? What do you know about Lucy?" is the character. "What do you know about Lucy?" And from the back of the classroom, he said, very, very deliberately, "She is very angry." And the whole room just erupted in laughter, because out of the mouth of someone that has never spoken out loud in class before came this very succinct, direct, and clear analysis of what was going on in that email. But what's so interesting about it is that in that moment where he said the unsayable, right, he crossed that line into the forbidden and called it what it was, he immediately found affinity with everyone else in the room. So the laughter was not at him, but was about how he'd made this comment, and it was so, in its directness and in its simplicity, was so accurate. And he immediately saw that he'd made a joke, right? And so he immediately had this expression of just how he'd made a joke, he got the joke, and everybody else did too. And there was a sense of acceptance. And that's kind of the phenomenon that I'm interested in terms of studying leadership and humor. And so I just give you this framework. This is not the only framework about leadership. I hope you'll take some classes over in the business school, whether you major in architecture or environmental studies or whatever you major in. And we'll talk about leadership, but this is a framework for thinking about it. And I want you to see how these activities that a leader engages in are very connected to those same things that make a joke funny, right? It's about this kind of connection, about the unexpected, about the mini innovation that telling a joke is. And we can even think about these as a typology of behaviors that leaders engage in on the right-hand side here. This idea of sense-making for others, showing consideration is really that business of being warm and approachable. And this idea of structuring tasks, which is to give order and a sense of purpose in organizations, they really equate to the three pieces that we see for humor to be present. This idea of wit, the cognition, mirth, the emotional response, and then laughter is the behavior that manifests itself. And so I'm kind of interested in two basic research questions, and I won't go into great detail about it today, but I'm happy to talk to anyone that's interested after our presentation. How leaders use humor, and also how leaders are portrayed in humor. So I'm happy to report that I spent a surprising amount of my time watching The Office. Yeah. I'm probably the only person in the business college that can get away with having The Office on their computer routinely during any work day. And so I want to show you a clip because part of it, in the spirit of how leaders are portrayed, part of what makes something funny is how close it is to reality, right? And so I want to show you this little clip from The Office. We should be good. I'm going to show you about a minute from the beginning here, and then I want to scan forward and show you kind of how the story ends. And this is from season 6. I don't know how familiar. Do you watch The Office? Yeah. Okay. I'm late to The Office. I didn't get it at first, the first season, and then suddenly I came in around season 4, and I thought, oh, this is what I've been missing. I went back and looked at it all. So, and then I tied it to my research so I could,
Stop. The lost and found has gone missing. It itself is lost. So please, until we find it. Pen day. If you don't have a pen,
when are we getting to sales topics?
Yeah, but what about those leads? Did you hear anything from corporate?
Yes, the leads. The leads that Sabre has spent $50,000 to get from a market research company are not here yet. But will be. Damn it. No, meeting's not over.
But is there anything relevant to the sales staff here?
No sales topic per se.
Well, then no Andy Bernard per se.
Dwayne?
Sorry, Michael, I got calls to make.
I would like your undivided attention, please.
You couldn't handle my undivided attention.
Over the last few weeks, things have been changing here. Sabre says it is our duty to support the sales team, and the salesmen are letting it go to their heads. I think it's kind of screwed up. Because the way this place used to work was make friends first, make sales second, make love third, in no particular order.
Listen.
Michael, we spent a lot of money on this lead.
He's decided to not give
Then we are just rewarding their bad behavior. Okay, just imagine that instead of going to jail for murdering someone, you got an ice cream cone. If that were the case, then in the summertime, everyone would go around killing people for the pleasure of an ice cream cone.
Michael, I don't want to incentivize murder, but we've tried to make it clear that our policy emphasizes sales staff.
They act like I have no power.
But you do. You are in charge.
Thank you.
By supporting the sales staff. You are required to hand out those leads, Michael.
Well, if that is what I am required to do, I will do exactly that.
Okay, good.
Exactly that.
Good.
Exactly that.
Why do you keep repeating?
Hello. May I have everyone's attention, please? Gabe has instructed me to hand out the leads, so I am going to give the leads to King Creed. What are you? And to King Meredith.
They aren't salespeople.
And to King Angela. Because today we are all kings and queens. I am giving them the leads, Phyllis.
So I'm going to go ahead and save you some time and tell you that no one's going to go along with this. But you knew that, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So why don't you just give me my share of the leads? and I'll start making some calls.
Okay.
Hey, all right.
All right.
These are leads. What are they?
Oh, right, those are clues. And within each clue is a lesson. You learn a lesson, and then you find a lead. The leads are scattered all over the industrial park. I'm trying to make your kids respect you, because a father needs to respect his boss, and kids don't respect the father who doesn't respect the boss. Do you understand that line of logic?
I think you understand.
I do understand it.
This one's a map. Or is it?
Oh, how the tables have turned. I see you got my email.
Are you going to give me the leads or not?
I'll give you the leads. But you know what? It's going to cost you some clerical work.
What are these for?
It doesn't matter. Fill them out, all of them. And when you're done, you can watch me shred them.
Right.
I want to watch the Kardashians, okay? I don't want to watch bored to death. It is...
No, it's you don't even know. How would he even know
about a family, a real-life
no,
family.
Stanley,
Hey, baby, what's up?
I am currently reading incoherent riddles on blue index cards to find vital information that Michael has hidden all over the office.
Okay, so what do you see going on there? What's going on in the organization? Any thoughts? Go ahead.
Power struggle.
Yeah, there's a power struggle, right, between the sales people that are part of the sales force and the other people in the organization, and maybe Michael, right? What else? Anything else? I know it feels like a test. Right? What you see is a change in the reward structure, right, within the organization in terms of the incentives, has caused an imbalance in the power. And while it's an interesting approach that Michael has taken to try to right that situation in his organization, he's not entirely wrong. He's not entirely wrong. This idea that the salespeople have decided that they're more important and more central to what's happening in the organization than the other people who are in different fields has divided his team. And his approach, while unconventional, is really about how he brings his team back together. So there's something inherently right in what he's doing in terms of the leadership, despite his approach about going about it. I particularly like the thing that may or may not be a map. Thank you.
While they're getting set up, just so that I can kind of get a sense of what my audience is, how many of you know about 4Chan or trolling? Some of you, a little bit? Okay, that'll be helpful. That's what I'm talking about. I study trolls for a living, so dirty pictures, basically, and kittens is what I do.
What about Rick Astley?
He actually will be featured in this. That's good news. Some Rick Astley, sure. I do meme stuff. And so today I'm going to be talking about internet humor and how it's transmitted, and the ways that people are sort of, the way they kind of, they transmit cultural data using these very particular kinds of memes or viral jokes. So once I get all set up, then we will start the show. How many people know what a meme is, too? That's also good information for me to know. A few? Okay. You guys know. What a meme. All right, let me just check. I think that, I sound funny. I like this machine. Okay. Something weird is on
Yes.
Oh yeah, we're going there. Okay. Good. Let me just double check. No, I'm not sure. I get to this stuff, just quickly, I'm going to give a little blurb on, hey, where's my Joe? I'm going to give a little blurb on my research, and this is going to be the only prepared thing that I have to say, but what I study is actually pretty unwieldy and pretty strange, and in order for you guys to know exactly what I do, I want to make sure that I sort of put forward the most straightforward explanation. So today I'm going to be talking about, and I study in the English department as a PhD student, I study trolling, an online subculture devoted to meme creation and social disruption. Trolls revel in seemingly racist, seemingly sexist, and seemingly homophobic humor. They deploy this humor to amass lulz, a particular kind of unsympathetic, ambiguous laughter. My research analyzes the social implications of trolling, focusing in particular on cultural precedents and contexts for troll behaviors. Much like archetypal trickster figures who reveal uncomfortable, good Lord, truths about the cultures they inhabit, trolls provide a window onto popular culture, specifically by voicing widespread, though unspoken, discomfort with race and sexuality, as well as dissociative attitudes towards violence, war, and suffering. So that, in a nutshell, is what I do. So today, in particular, I'm going to be talking about trolls, and specifically trolls as they're found on 4chan and Facebook. I don't know if you've heard of that. 4chan is a simple image board where anonymous posters will upload images and text. It gets 200 million discrete hits per month, so pretty widespread. And the founder of the site, good old Moot, who I met, by the way, he's mean. I said something wrong and he yelled at me in front of everyone. It was kind of great. Just sort of trolled him, but I wanted to cry. It was embarrassing. But he's, according to some of the data that they've run on the site, at any given moment in time, there are 10,000 pairs of eyeballs on the random page, which is, you can't fully see it because it's kind of a small image, but random is the B page. I know I just broke rules 1 and 2. I'm very sorry. But that's what I'm talking about specifically. So just on the front page, not on page 2, not on page 15, on the first page, 10,000 eyeballs at any given moment. That's not the only place that trolls can be found, of course, but this is where I've done most of my research. And for people who aren't very familiar with trolls, what they do, how they function, I want to show a little video that kind of illustrates what they do on the ground, so to speak. And I picked this video for 2 reasons. First of all, it shows the media reaction to trolls. There's a kind of hystericism surrounding troll humor. And also, I like this video because it shows how trolls react to the ways in which media responds to trolling. As far as the trolls are concerned, this is the greatest, most classic, legendary video ever to be produced. And before I show it, just for the record, trolls don't actually kill people. They don't actually blow up stadiums. They make naughty jokes, lots of pictures of penises and lots of pictures of kittens, all kinds of crazy things. But they're not actually criminals. So just be aware that the reason that the trolls find this video so funny is that they're framed as like America's Most Wanted. Okay, you need to go away. Exit. No. Where in show? Okay. Thanks. I grew up with this man. I grew up in LA. That's John Beard.
Tells anonymous they are.
Oh, and on 4chan, for those of you who don't know, you post things anonymously, and so people on the site kind of refer to themselves collectively as anonymous. This is on 4chan.
Themselves anonymous, they are hackers on steroids, treating the web like a real-life video game, sacking websites, invading MySpace accounts, disrupting innocent people's lives. And if you fight back, watch out. Fushu tracks down the hacker gangs in this Fox 11 investigation. Destroy. Die. Attack. Threats from a gang of computer hackers calling themselves anonymous.
I've had 7 different passwords and they've got them all so far.
They attack innocent people like an internet hate machine.
We are anonymous. We are Sean. We do not forget. We do not forget.
Those who fight back face death threats. Anonymous has even threatened to bomb sports stadiums.
I believe they're domestic terrorists.
Their name comes
lulls from their secret websites. It requires anyone posting on the site to remain anonymous. MySpace users are among their favorite targets. People like David.
The next thing I know, I had a bunch of naked guys on my profile.
Anonymous hacked his site and plastered it with gay sex pictures. His girlfriend left him.
She thought that I was cheating on her with guys.
They cracked his computer with a virus and used his own email to infect everyone on his friends list.
Out of 90 friends, they killed 32 of my friends' computers.
Now, David was apparently just a random victim. We found his MySpace password on an underground hacker site linked to Anonymous. There were literally thousands of stolen passwords on that site. And victims are left wondering, why is all this happening to me?
They will tell you we want to create chaos and disorder and ruin people's lives.
This hacker, who wants us to hide his identity, spent months checking out sites linked to Anonymous.
They get laughs. They enjoy doing this. They get what they call lulls.
Lulls is a corruption of LOL, which stands for laugh out loud. Anonymous gets big lulls from pulling random pranks. For example, messing with online children's games like Habbo Hotel. The pranks are often anti-Semitic or racist and always posted on the internet. But truly epic lulls come from raids and invasions branded on the Anonymous website with an I, like their nationwide campaign to spoil the new Harry Potter book ending.
Attention children! Multiple kills!
Their most notorious stunt, a bomb threat against 7 football stadiums, which drew national media attention.
The claim is that trucks loaded with radioactive material would be detonated in the stadiums.
One man was arrested last year after posting the threat, now thought to be a hoax. He's pleaded not guilty and awaits trial.
Okay, and then it goes on from there, and it basically is like, hide your family, and you'll be in big trouble. They'll get you. One woman, she got a dog to protect her from the trolls, which is a good strategy, I think. So let me get back to y'all. Come back, friend. No. Oh, God. Okay, so out of that video, a number of memes emerged, and I'm going to talk more about what a meme actually is in a minute. But for now, suffices to say, it's an inside joke between a group of people. And one of the things to emerge from that internet hate machine, this is one of the more cuddly permutations of that. The idea that the internet is made of hackers and steroids. The 4chan party van also, because of the exploding thing. What's interesting about that video for me is that they never actually use the word trolls, and the American media is very, very slow to adopt appropriate terminology for things that happen online. So the question is, okay, they're not really hackers exactly. What are they? And the best way to define it again is to contrast it with other kind of common misconceptions about sort of nasty behavior online. So as I said, trolls use a lot of homophobic, racist humor, but just encountering that kind of stuff doesn't necessarily mean that the person that you're dealing with is a troll. So you see a lot of this kind of thing online, that trolling is regarded as kind of like a general catch-all term. And although people sometimes refer to, like, I don't know, mean posts and stuff as trolls, not exactly. Trolls are self-identifying. It's a discrete subculture. They refer to themselves as trolls. They have a particular linguistic system, aesthetic system. So it isn't just like random people. Anytime you encounter something mean, that's not necessarily a troll. Similarly, trolling is often used interchangeably with cyberbullying, and it is not just cyberbullying either. And so what you can take away from that is that, where just because something is racist or sexist or whatever, or terrible, or cyberbullying, it does not necessarily mean that it's trolling. What it could mean, and what it often does mean, is that person is just an asshole. And sometimes an asshole is just an asshole, and that's all that they are. It does not mean necessarily that it's a troll. So what exactly does make somebody a troll? According to Encyclopedia Dramatica, which is kind of the trolling archive, trolls abide by certain behavioral principles. First of all, they're motivated by lulls. Lulls is the it's basically creating emotional distress, and you amass lulls by making somebody uncomfortable or upset for the things that you're saying. You should not feed them. That the more attention you pay a troll, the stronger they become. And so if you do give them the lulls they so crave, then what you've got on your hands will be a lot of, well, more of them all the time. And if lulls are achieved, they win, and then successful troll is, of course, successful. And this kind of collectively is referred to as the game. And the purpose is to win. You want to win lulls. And people are all about just trying to get that win. You don't want to lose the game, because then you are, well, I don't know, you lose the game, and that's terrible. So the basic idea is that trolls, they just want to cause disturbance. And trolling humor is based on, and this is where we're going to get to the meme part, it's based on an interconnected sort of network of inside jokes, which are referred to as memes. And to give you a sense of how memes function, I'm going to show you how they kind of evolve, and how what they do is they actually are transmitting genetic material, kind of the way a virus would, or even just a regular gene. You know, it transmits information about a particular organism. So we're going to go, well, so no, that's not true, actually, I lied. Here's some well-known memes. If you happen to know things about the 4chan, these will make sense to you. And if you don't know anything about trolling, you're going to be like, what is that fanciful-looking bear? I don't understand. It just seems so cuddly. But so we're gonna map the development of the meme. So here is a nice image. This is something that made the rounds on 4chan that would be deployed in a number of different contexts, either if someone had done something great or someone had done something really dumb. How can I, next previous and show? I'm going to have to go through that again. That's so frustrating. So, yeah. And so I'm going to show you a little clip from one of the greatest music videos ever produced in the history of mankind. How many people know what's coming? Oh yeah. So you're going to recognize this moment. And so remember the "Are You a Wizard" thing, and then we're going to go here.
Music is a lot like love. It's all a feeling, and it fills the room from the floor to the ceiling. I see miracles all around me. Stop and look around, it's all astounding. Water, fire, air, and dirt. Fucking magnets, how do they work? And I don't want to...
So the whole video really is just one gem after the next, but fucking magnets, how do they work? For whatever reason, it really resonated with the trolls. And so we've got this. How do I get it to just go back so I don't have to start? What? What? Oh, okay. Thank you, Janae. Okay, so you've got this, and then you just saw that clip. This becomes a meme, right? And so this is sort of the defining moment in that video, I would argue. It has the most permutations. You see it in all different kinds of ways. And so then what ends up happening, which is really interesting, is that so you've got the original image. So let's think back here. No. Here we go. Then we go here. Then we go here. And then we go here. And so what ends up happening is that you have this one image that contains in it a number of different threads to a number of different jokes. And if you are a troll, or if you know very much about either of the meme threads, you can recognize in this one image all kinds of different stuff that's going on. And so then you would take this and use it in certain contexts, or twist it to mean something new to you. And every time you use it again, you're indicating that you understand this cultural meaning that it conveys. And so you have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these memes. And for most of you in this room, these images aren't going to mean anything. But in the same way so this sort of joke is meaning stacked on top of meaning, these images also have a history. And they speak to like 5 or 6 different threads. So some of you will know where this is coming from. Probably not many of you. This one's my favorite. These all mean so much to me. And so those are just a couple of examples of embedded meaning. The question, of course, is why should we care about this kind of humor? If only a certain percentage of the people in this room even know what I'm talking about, why should we care? And the answer is that, well, first of all, there are so many trolls in this world, and even people who aren't trolls explicitly end up participating in the kind of cultural production of these different memes. And the vast majority of memes that we all know about, that we would recognize in this room, originated on 4chan. So this is the last one. Does anyone know Jesse Slaughter? Thank you. What can you tell me about the consequences? Oh, you can't talk. Oh.
The consequences?
Yeah.
Well, some photos of her stolen from her cell phone were distributed to members of her middle school, to the principal. They were contacting her home phone.
Well, I mean, there's a tagline: consequences will never
be the same.
Thank you. Yeah. So yeah. So people who don't know each other can when you hear consequences, you're like, okay, you're kind of speaking that language, and then you can kind of have this shared cultural experience. But this is where I was going next. So lolcats comes from 4chan in 2006. Chocolate Rain comes out of 4chan. And Rick Astley, the Rick rolling phenomenon, also came out of 4chan. So these are, 10 and 20 and 30 times removed from their original context, but a lot of people recognize these and don't really know where they come from. And so by studying trolls and by studying this kind of viral humor, you actually can kind of see culturally what's going on and what is popular and what ends up kind of making it into the real world, whatever that even means. So that's trolling in a nutshell, and I'm curious to know what kinds of questions you might have about it, because it can be problematic, because of course you're dealing with troubling language and bad, naughty behavior. But that's what I've got in terms of like visual things. So thanks, guys.
So I want to maybe try to simplify a couple of things that we've talked about. Because you've kind of experienced several different types of things that make you laugh. So, and part of it, we mentioned jokes and humor, and they're two separate things, so that you understand that. Comedians work in an environment where they tell jokes. Writers for sitcoms either write jokes or write humor. The troll thing is more on the humor side as opposed to the joke side. Because jokes basically have to have certain elements in order for them to be a joke. And the question is, why do we laugh at jokes? Well, simply because they have those two elements. And the most important thing about a joke is that it has to surprise you. That's why we laugh, because we're surprised. Like, for example, I'm sure everybody knows knock-knock jokes. At one point in your life, you thought they were funny. And then they quit being funny because you know what the punchline is. So you're not surprised, so it's not funny to you anymore. But I guarantee you, if somebody comes up with a new punchline to a knock-knock joke, you will find it funny. So that's basically, humor in a nutshell. Very simplified. A joke has to have two elements. It has to have an assumption, something that we all know. For example, the assumption being, if you all look this way, you're assuming that the outside is still there, the wall is still there, the floor is still there, the ceiling's still there. The punchline is something that changes that in other words, shatters the assumption. And that's the surprise, and that's what makes us laugh. Make sense? Okay. I also think that laughter itself, and I'll just give you a little bit more about my background. I produce stand-up comedy shows in 8 states, and I'm the talent coordinator for the company, and run about 500 comedians a year through these nightclubs. So, and it's my job to kind of look at their material and decide, who's going to work in what clubs. And even though there are 8 different states and different kind of cities, humor, yes, is a little bit regional, and there has to be some frame of reference, but there's some basic things that I just know by watching a comedian perform, that this comedian has the chops. They're going to be funny. There's something about them that's just funny. And it's that they understand the whole joke process, you know, because when you're standing on stage doing your comedy, it's completely different than a bunch of people just standing around, you know, entertaining themselves, telling, you know, jokes. Guys can you know, do arm farts or, you know, throw boogers on each other or those kind of things, you know, and at some point, that, you know, if you're young enough or you drink enough, that's going to be funny. But there is kind of a joke process that everybody kind of understands, and we know what a setup line is because we've heard them all of our lives when we watch TV shows and sitcoms, and we know what a punchline is, you know, and we're anticipating that. The funny thing, this is a story that I tell, and it's about the surprise. So I love roller coasters, right? The story's not funny, but it expresses the point. I love roller coasters. And, you know, I travel around, I go on vacation, I always hit roller coasters. And roller coasters are reasonably predictable. But the reason people like roller coasters is because they're surprised. They don't know, you know, how far up they're going to go, how fast they're going to go, where the turns are going to be. And that surprises them, and they enjoy that. But roller coasters do this thing to where they either shoot you up or they take you up and they send you on this ride. And you're going very, very fast, but over the course of the roller coaster, you're slowing. And right before the roller coaster ends, it kind of goes to a stop, and then you coast back into the station. And that's that point where you go, oh, you know, the ride's over, right? Well, I'm on this particular roller coaster, and it did the whole thing, and it got to that point, and I let my guard down and relaxed to go, oh, the ride's over. And then it took off again on this, like, you know, another, you know, 2 or 3 minutes of this wild ride. And I started laughing hysterically and couldn't stop laughing for 10 minutes. It was just because, and it was because I was, I've been on all these roller coasters, and this is the first one that really surprised me. I was completely surprised, taken off guard. I mean, I was already trying to figure out how to get out of my belt, and this thing takes off again. So, that's the thing, for humor. The other thing is that, you talked a little bit about, babies and children. If you talk to any comedian, I'm going to say 99.9% of them, they develop their sense of humor as a defense mechanism. All of us were either, or were in weird circumstances, we got picked on, we got bullied, and we developed our humor as a way to be accepted by the people, or a way to attack, or a way to not get picked on. But I think even babies figure it out when they're really, really small, that if they can make you laugh, you're going to like them. Babies, you said they start laughing at about 4 months, but I think that, especially with, my kids, they figured out, really, really young, if they did a certain thing, that I would start laughing, they'd see the smile on my face. So then they would just do it over and over and over again. So, and I think that's kind of a defense mechanism thing, that having that sense of humor and being able to make people laugh, I think culturally is really, really important to us. And another thing happened to me. I was doing a music show on Sunday, and again, this is one of those surprise things. I'm doing a music show, and it was a home party, and we weren't really taking requests, but we were asking for requests. And this little kid, about 2 years old, comes up with a piece of paper and hands it to me. And everybody's looking at me, and they're looking at the little kid, and they open up the piece of paper, and they said, "Play Twinkle Twinkle." Which, again, everybody but you guys thought it was funny. Because here's this situation where, there's this thing going on, and a little kid just walks up and hands a piece of paper. Now, there's nothing on the piece of paper, but the surprise was that this kid had the presence of mind to request a song.
And that song.
And that song, yeah. Though he didn't really. I made that up. The Twinkle Twinkle part. Just telling you guys, because you look genuinely concerned. Anyway, that's what I have to say before you start asking questions.
If you let us talk all night, we'll just talk.
Can a sense of humor be learned, or are some people innately funnier than others? And why?
Can I?
Sure.
Yeah. We all have it. We all have a sense of humor. The ability to appreciate it and express it can be learned. So, yeah.
Can I add?
You sure?
So I would just add that I think, and you see a sort of an evolution of someone's either both style and also sort of sophistication as they develop, right? And that's kind of back to your point about the knock-knock jokes. You know, you can't say that the child telling the knock-knock jokes doesn't have a sense of humor. It's just that your sophistication level is very different.
Unless you're an engineering student and you have no sense of humor at all. Yeah.
Do animals laugh?
Yes. Chimps do, and other primates do.
Does it sound the same? Like, and what is laughter? Just, I mean, like, it's like a bunch of weird noises, I guess. It's just like, ha ha ha. Why is it that?
Go ahead. I haven't heard it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why we make that particular noise. You know, what happens, there's actually a physical change that goes on in your body. So, you know, you hit the point of surprise, so then you have adrenaline hitting you, and then you have endorphins hitting you, hormones, you know, hitting you. You get all this stuff going on. So part of it is you know, changes your heart pattern, it changes your breathing pattern. So, you know, you could be, laughter could be like a hiccup thing where you're trying to get some more air in or push some more air out. You know, because different people, I mean, there's people that laugh but don't make a sound. You know, and then they got people that, you know, are high-pitched laugh and low laughs or, you know, snorty laughs. You know, all kinds of noises that people make. You know, I've had audiences where I thought somebody was crying. You know, where they're just doing this. You know, and you're thinking that, you know, and that's just the way they laugh, you know, so. Yeah, there has to be a release, and maybe that's what that noise is the release.
I think it's an expulsion of the air coming from the tongue.
Who's your favorite comedian, like specifically?
Me?
Yes. No,
Oh, boy. I have lots of them. I have lots of favorite comedians. Some are dead.
Well, I mean, like, if I want to go home later tonight and have a laugh, who can I YouTube? That's what
Oh. You know, I don't know. Because I don't know your sense of humor. So, you know, who makes me laugh? Brian Regan makes me laugh. I just think he's hilarious. So, but, you know, it also depends on your sense of, you know, your field of reference, because you guys are like 18, 19, 20. So the things that make you laugh, you know, I don't get.
I would just add, I do a lot with improv and leadership classes, and the go-to person for me for that is Robin Williams. And that may or may not be the best person in this day and age, but I think he's a classic.
But I watch humor every day, and I highly recommend that to everybody. At least 2-3 times a day, watch something funny.
Not during your class.
You know, even if it's like watching cartoons in the afternoon, or, you know, the late night shows, you know, get that laughter thing happening. You're going to be healthier. I think that's one of the reasons that we laugh, because it's good for us. They say that you can lose weight laughing. If you laugh every day, you'll lose 4 pounds a year. Stress reduction. There's also people that have related humor and laughter to for healing properties, cancer curing properties. So lots of good reasons, you know, to get out there and laugh. You know, find something funny.
Does it matter? Well, we have a set of questions, but we just said there about healing properties. Some of the things that the trolls laugh at are some of the most hateful and horrible things you can possibly laugh at. Would those have a similar? I mean, do you think you can be both corrupted?
Well, okay. There's yeah. You're talking about, well, there's 2 different things, and you have to separate the things. So one thing is the laughter, And I'm not going to judge people to tell them what they should and shouldn't laugh at. You know, that's up to you to make that decision on what you find is funny and what you think is funny. The laughing is the thing that you need to do. Now, the physical response, right? But when you're dealing with you know, those kind of negative images, they react on your psyche a whole different way, and you're going to develop a whole other kind of problems, other than when you're exposed to that kind of negativity, you know, it has to have an effect on you.
I think for it to have the healing property, it's really about the stress release, right? So if it creates more tension than it releases, then it's not working in that way.
Because I can't imagine that you know, when like I have friends that, you know, spend hours and hours online, you know, looking for things, you know, looking for creepy things, looking for negative things. Just the physical act of doing that, you know, takes away from your life experience. So.
Well, I mean, that seems like a very broad generalization, though.
Sure.
I mean, so saying that going online or something that somehow divorces you from the real life, and that humor online isn't real or something. I don't know.
I'm not saying it has anything to do with the humor. The humor is the humor, and you can laugh at it as you want. You know, but for example, if I think that punching you in the head is funny, okay, you know, I think that it's funny, but there's going to be a negative result for me punching you in the head. There's going to be a negative result for me, and certainly a negative result for you. So, again, I'm not judging what someone thinks is funny is not funny. So there's funny, and there's that thing that makes you laugh. That's a good thing. But if you're using a bad thing to achieve that good thing, you're kind of, it's a wash. And I think that because he was asking about healing ability of humor, and I think you lose that, you know, if I've got sore knuckles from punching her in the head.
Well, I mean, one of the things that happens with this kind of humor, which is questionable, and you can talk about why it is that people would find these kinds of things funny, but what it does is it is community forming. And one of the things that laughter does, whether it's malicious laughter or laughter in good spirit, is that it does bring people together. And so, you know, in terms of humor serving some utilitarian end, even negative laughter seems to accomplish that goal. In fact, negative laughter or mean humor, accomplishes that much faster than like sweet humor does, because it creates an inside and an outside, and it fortifies those borders in ways that is more conducive to subcultural formation than humor that is, you know, sort of chuckle humor. And, you know, so I think that that's an important thing to remember too, is that there are lots of different ways to laugh, and there are lots of different reasons that one would laugh. And so it's hard to make, you know, to talk about it instrumentally across those different genres, I think.
One caution I would have is that I haven't been in psychology for a long time, but I did start out there, and I would say that it's clear that the research indicates that anger is a dress rehearsal for more anger. And so to the extent to which there's some sort of anger involved, there's this sort of just priming yourself for more anger rather than release. We used to believe that you released your anger and you felt better, but we know that now it's a dress rehearsal for more anger. So I think that's really, for me, it's got to be about the tension and the stress.
Well, also, and I want to agree with you on this, and thanks for reminding me of that point, because humor, in order for it to be effective, and the best jokes are based on a negative opinion. So all of us that write jokes, all of our punchlines are based on a negative opinion or a negative attitude. So that is where the real tension comes, and that's basically what we're laughing at. So yes, there has to be some type of a negativity in order for the joke to be a joke. If that feature isn't there, then it's not a joke. You know, it might be funny or humorous, but it's not a joke.
Yeah, I'm reminded of can I give an example? I'm reminded of when I worked right out of college, I worked at 911 as a dispatcher. And, you know, this idea of gallows humor. humor among people that are coping with stress and using humor as a release. And one day while we were working, there was a terrible incident. Actually, I think it happened, might have even been Portland, but over here on the West Coast, where a gentleman had fallen into a wood processor, and it was unclear if he had a heart attack and then fell in, or if he fell in and then, it wasn't a good ending. And anyway, the load of bark got all the way to Missoula, Montana, where I was working, before they realized that he was missing and surmised what probably had happened. And so in the 911 dispatch business, we have what we call scanner mongers, which are people that have a scanner for police radios in their home, and they listen to all the calls. And this was a fairly, as you can imagine, sensitive topic, right? And so we didn't want that to go over the air. And so all the officers who were detailed to go through the bark from that load and comb for his remains were on what they call chip detail. And it's I think that's kind of fun. It's dark, but it's funny. And it's a play on the old Chips. You remember the Chips TV show? Mm-hmm. But also, of course, obviously, chip detail. And so it's that kind of way that they're making sense of their world, as graphic and horrific as it is, and using humor as a kind of a coping mechanism.
Couldn't it be argued that like a non-malicious humor is a reflection of society's malicious intent and humor, and it sort of extracts it, sort of a la Borat? Like the malicious humor, it may be like incredibly offensive, but in fact is just extracting the extreme racism and homophobia of culture that we have, but we don't really see. And if you could talk more about that, because I think you have a lot to say about that.
Yeah. I mean, I actually, one of the things that I've done some work with trolls is the ways in which trolls are actually articulating the logical extremes within the culture. So it's not that trolls necessarily are racist. What they actually believe is ancillary to the fact that what they're doing is they're scavengers. And they take what's littered on the ground, and then they take that litter and they turn it into something new. So by studying even the most horrifying, objectively terrible stuff, the fact that it exists on the ground means that it's already there. And they're taking something that's there, and they're turning it into its monstrous extreme. So I think that is one of the things that trolls do, and that's why, people who are resistant to this idea that, I study bad stuff online, they're not creating anything new. They're not creating this culture. They're taking it and they're remixing it in ways that are interesting and are, I think, indicative of the state of racial discourse, sexual discourse, all these different kinds of discourses that go on in the culture but aren't explicitly addressed.
I think I'd agree with you on that, because when I was a kid, I remember at one point seeing like really racist comments written on the inside of a porta potty somewhere about when I was on vacation. And so this kind of comments, nasty comments you see online, existed anonymously before the internet did.
The porta potty.
Yeah, 4chan has been described as the inside of a bathroom stall. This might not be appropriate.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, one of the ways that I originally pitched this idea to one of my professors, who was horrified and made me take this out and retrofit it, was that, so one of the ways that you can tell what a bear has been eating is to go through its poo and see what kinds of things it has been excreting out of itself. And it's the same thing with trolls. You can tell what the culture is doing by looking through all of its shit. And trolls are creating that. And they're taking it and they're compiling it. And so you can tell a lot about what's going on in the world by seeing what trolls are doing. Trolls are first responders. They're always on the computer. They're always on top of news stories 3 to 4 days before the traditional news media gets there. And so you kind of can see where trends are going and where they've already been by studying these otherwise very, very problematic behaviors. So it's kind of like it's almost a canary in the coal mine sort of thing with what's actually going on.
Like a dung beetle.
Like a dung beetle, exactly. Yeah, and it's all too appropriate to use those kinds of metaphors with these guys because they revel in that kind. So I feel like I'm doing the trolls a service by bringing, fecal matter into the discussion. They would approve.
I was curious if you have any opinions about the Scientology protests.
Yeah, well, one of the things that's interesting about trolls in relation to Scientology is that trolls, Anonymous and Scientology have an antipodal relationship. So in every way that trolls are chaotic and embrace kind of free access online, Scientology is the exact opposite. And so it's kind of like the shadow of each other battling it out, you know. And it's kind of like, it's like a, you know, bizarro Scientology. That's what Anonymous actually is. There's been a lot of really interesting work on Scientology, but they're going after the RIAA right now for piracy stuff. They're going after Gene Simmons because he spoke ill of the trolls publicly, and then now he gets attacked. Yeah.
Would it be possible for someone to find nothing and if so, how would that be?
You mean just in general?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, mostly because you have to have some type of a field of reference. So if you've never done anything or gone anywhere, let's say you lived in a room and that's all you did. You had no exposure to any outside stimulation, no cultural stimulation. I imagine eventually you would try to entertain yourself some way or shape or form. But a person like that probably wouldn't find very much humorous, or most things that are in modern culture, they wouldn't find it humorous at all, because they wouldn't understand the juxtaposition of the joke. They wouldn't understand the negative concept that made the punchline. They wouldn't know to associate the setup line, which gives you that whole parameter in which the joke is, you know, based on. When you were showing clips of troll things, you have to have some kind of a reference in order to understand or, you know, get the jokes. If you didn't have any reference, it was just a picture.
You know, it might be a more sophisticated kind of physiological question, and I don't have a background in that, but I would say that we're hardwired for humor and for expressing humor as human beings. But I certainly know there are examples of types of brain damage that cause losses. And certainly, if you step outside of culture, I studied Russian in the military, and you really know you're a linguist when you get jokes in a different language and culture. That's when you crossed over. Right? Until that time, it's like, I don't get it. Tell me again, I don't get it.
See, also, I think that jokes are work within subcultures.
Right.
So, you know, what one subculture might, you know, appreciate as humor, another subculture just might sound like wah 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 to them.
Hey. Do you know if there are studies done, like finding personality traits related to like things people find humorous? I feel like at least with my friends and people I know, there are some people who think this is hilarious and some who think it's the dumbest thing ever. And like most of my friends, like you can categorize them by figure out what they think is funny. Do you know if there have been studies done with that?
I can speak specifically to leadership styles and humor, and there's some differences on preference for style and what kinds of humor you find. When you say personality traits, sometimes we mean personality as sort of in the pop psych way that we use it about our differences. But if you really mean trait research, and that would be sort of like the Big Five or some other test that would determine personality. I know that there's a strong indirect correlation between neuroticism and humor, right? So the more neurotic you are, the less likely you are to find things humorous. But I don't know about the big, like extroversion, introversion, these kinds of dynamics.
Or even intelligence. You know?
Intelligence is a good one. You know, I have not seen anything that indicates that there's actually something called emotional intelligence, which is in my field is EQ, is correlated pretty well with use of humor in leadership style. And it's for the reasons that I talked about, this idea of bonding and connecting and sense-making and reading and empathy of the other person. But I've not seen anything to indicate that intelligence is
But if you look at certain comedians or certain funny movies or certain income or sitcoms, and you can go back and look at the demographic of viewers and watchers, you'll see that there's certain, shows that, their demographic is, 12-year-old to 18-year-old boys. That's, that group finds this funny. That's their following. Or you'll find one that lends itself to, people with college educations of a certain age group or socioeconomic group. So you find that kind of stuff. I mean, they have a thing now which they call, black humor. Which is supposedly it's certain people outside of that ethnic group aren't supposed to get those jokes or quite understand those jokes. So
I think there's research that indicates that comedians, as a subgroup of our culture, statistically have high IQs. I mean, there's a relationship on that side, and that may, that probably has something to do with multitasking and processing.
Well, comedians generally, and this is just from knowing a lot of them, and
dumber than a box of rocks.
Well, they're generally higher IQs, but most of them ADD, obsessive compulsive disorder, all kinds of baggage.
Depression is highly correlated.
You would think they would be outgoing, very insecure. They need this thing on stage. They just need this. So I remember doing a show in Coos Bay, and one of my buddies shows up, and he's doing a show in a banquet room. And he went to the banquet room, and it just wasn't quite his audience, and it just didn't go very well. Just a miserable show for him. And he was just very depressed and comes back in to the lounge where I was doing a show, and he goes, "You mind if I just go up like 5 minutes before you?" And I said, "Why?" He goes, "That's had a miserable time," and his whole self-worth was all built into that, wrapped into that one thing. So a lot of comics like that. I mean, their ego is right there. I don't know if that answers your question.
I think we have maybe time for just one more question. We're kind of at time.
Can you talk at all about inside language versus outside language? In that, for me as a joke, I tell a joke to another Jew, it's funny, but if somebody else says that same joke, to be perceived as offensive,
I think you're right, but I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, I think she's that what we talked about a little bit, because there's that subculture humor. So yeah, I mean, if you people that don't know what Schwitzfiction is and schmelting and other Yiddish terminology, if they don't know what that is, then they're really not going to necessarily understand the joke. And I don't have a problem with excluding people. It's like your secret language, your humor that's within your language and culture. Families do it too. Mm-hmm. I mean, groups of friends have these inside jokes. Everybody has groups of friends with these inside jokes.
Industries do it. Organizations do it. I mean, groups. You can imagine the IT unit of an organization has its own humor that's very different than the accounting humor, which is another oxymoron.
It's something less in terms of telling it to somebody else, but in terms of the person who's actually telling the joke.
The delivery? Are we talking?
Yeah, if I'm telling a joke, it might be funny, but if somebody else is telling that same joke, it can be perceived as offensive.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Well, why is it offensive? Is that your question?
Why is it offensive if one person says it, but not if somebody else says it?
The short answer from my end is because humor is socially constructed. And so the social context makes all the difference in how it's perceived.
And for humor, there's this set of rules of permissions.
Yes.
There's a permission. For example, even in nightclubs, you'll get comics that'll go up and they'll tell a couple of test jokes, and just to see how the audience reacts. And the audience at that point is giving them permission to go in a certain way or hit a certain level, of joke. And personally, funny is, for me, funny is funny. But I think there's certain things that people just don't have permission to do. I mean, I can make a joke about my wife. That's a very blue joke, and I'll tell her or tell my brother, something like that, and that's perfectly okay. But I'll punch somebody else in the nose that says the same joke. That's not in my family, so.
We, in leadership, we caution people about using humor for this very reason, right? Because something about particularly if you're in a hierarchical position in an organization, something about your delivery can be very misinterpreted. And so you have to be really, really careful about it. It's not a slam dunk that it's going to work. And it's for exactly that reason, that the power imbalance distorts the value of the human.
Well, and a lot of humor too, especially trolling humor, but other forms of humor as well, that the reason that it's funny to the teller and to the hearer is because it crosses those boundaries, because you don't have permission to tell or hear the joke. And that's where some of the enjoyment is derived, the fact that it's taboo and that you shouldn't be telling it and you shouldn't be laughing at it, and that there's a kind of the fact that there isn't permission is what drives it and makes it interesting. And that certainly is what happens with trolls, because their response is, oh, I'm not allowed to say these things, I have to be careful with this language. No. And they push at every single boundary that society has imposed. And not only do they push at it, they stomp on them deliberately, which is why it can be really, really hard to stomach for a lot of people, because we're kind of comfortable with the borders and the boundaries that we have established. That's what makes things run smoothly. And trolls just have no interest. In fact, they recognize a border, and then as soon as they've got it in their line of sight, they're like, "It's gone. I'm gonna jump on it now."
But Whitney, isn't it fair to say though that the intent there is that, right?
Oh yeah.
So it's that here that's the intent.
It's to offend an outside party, but for the people within that play frame, it's totally permissible, and in fact is what the subculture is predicated on.
Kevin, I don't know. I feel like I keep watching the clock, and I'm not sure.
It's a great conversation, but folks are welcome to stay and chat with our panelists. But if you could join me in welcome, thank you very much.